So let's talk about how to actually start getting some color on our image. And there's a couple important things that we need to talk about, and also just a couple little tips that this is, I think, the best time to kind of drop them in your lap. So the first thing I want to mention is that at the beginning, you may have seen that some of my tooltips were popping up, a lot like yours with these big tooltips like this. And I turned them off because they were just so distracting. I had to keep editing them out. But I want to show you how to turn those off in case you want them off, just because, they're so big. They're very, very helpful. So I think they were a great addition. I'm really thankful for the team for putting them in, the Photoshop team. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about brushes and look how it demonstrates really well exactly what I was just talking about with layers, where obviously that blue is on a layer that is beneath the fish, right? So you can paint right over the fish, but it doesn't cover up the fish because it's on that layer underneath. So it's actually kind of a nice little reminder of what we just learned in the last video. But these big tool tips are just getting in my way. So I'm going to show you how to turn them off, and you can turn them off if you'd like, but you don't need to. And to do that, you just go to Edit, Preferences, and Tools. And it's this guy right here, Use Rich Tooltips. So I'm going to just uncheck that and tell it okay. So now when I mouse over, I get the traditional, I always thought it looked a little bit like a yellow sticky note, like those kind where it says sign here. That's kind of what it looks like to me. But now that we've got that handled, one of the things I want to show you is you'll note that there's that little B next to where it says brush tool. That's because all of the tools, if I move around, you can see that they all have them. They have keyboard shortcuts as well, the same way that we've got keyboard shortcuts for menu commands. We've got them for tools as well. So if I just click B on the keyboard, you can see that it just switched to that brush tool. And another trick that you should know about, how we talked at the very beginning about how the tools are sort of like in a drawer. If you want to cycle through what's in that drawer, you can hold Shift when you hit that letter, and you can see that it cycles through all of the tools in that drawer. This is something that I never use. I don't know why I never developed this habit, but I never use the keyboard shortcuts for tools, except the spacebar for the hand thing. I use that all the time. Anyway, it's kind of a cool trick to know. Some people really like using those keyboard shortcuts, and so that's how you can find out what they are. Now that we're on the brush tool, let's kind of talk about some of the important settings and also how we can kind of center back and get things to all of us being on the same page. And this is the tool preset picker. And honestly, this is another feature that I never ever use except for this one function. Sometimes you'll choose a tool and it's just not working right. Everything seems weird. There's some weird setting and you can't determine why it's doing what it's doing, and you just want to get it set back to the defaults. You can do that by choosing this tool preset picker and then choose this little gear menu, and we're going to go here to reset tool. And as soon as you do that, now what that does is that sets all of our options here in the options bar to their defaults. Really, as far as this book goes, we're pretty much not going to fool with anything on this whole toolbar. There are a lot of functions and a lot of different things that just kind of over time, you need a little bit of finesse to sort of use and master some of these. So we're just not going to really address those. There are two settings though, which unfortunately are not always out up here. I kind of wish that they were right up in here, but you need to choose this option. And what I want to talk to you about is size and hardness. So these two settings for the brushes are critical. These are the ones that we change all of the time. Size, you've kind of already played with because you remember the little bracket trick we did with the left and the right square brackets right next to the letter P on your keyboard. That changes the size of the brush. So for example, on just 12 pixels now, if I move out here to my document, if I just use the right bracket, you can see that the tool is getting bigger, and left bracket and it gets smaller. I have to move my tool around because sometimes the screen recorder won't show the size change if I'm not moving the tool. So on your computer, you can just leave it standing still if you'd like. But that's a really easy way to kind of change the brush size. All that those brackets do is they just change this setting here. Now, hardness, we have not played with. And so this is a super important concept to understand. Down here, there's all these different tool presets. And what I'm going to do is turn down this one here that says General Brushes. And you can see that what it does is it shows you sort of what the brush looks like. This is called like the brush preview, and this is called the stroke preview. We can turn these off. I don't like this. I don't need to see the name. I don't need to see the whole stroke. I just want to see what the actual brush tip looks like. That's how Photoshop's done it forever. So that's probably just me being old and being used to it, and I don't want it to change. So what I'm going to do from this little menu here, again, that kind of gear options menu, I'm going to turn off the brush name. I don't need to see that. And I'm also going to turn off the brush stroke. Now, the reason that I like to do that is look how many more brushes I can kind of fit in this same amount of space, right? I can see just so many more of the brushes in this format. And this gives us a little bit of a preview of what a hard brush and a soft brush looks like. But to really demonstrate what I want to do is kind of bring it out here and show you out here on our document. So I'm going to make sure that I'm on layer 1. You can see that when a layer is active, that it's kind of highlighted. So I'm going to make sure that I'm on layer 1, and you can do this if you'd like to follow along. I'm going to change the hardness to 100%. Okay, so this is total hardness, right? It's as hard as the brush can get. And I'm going to just click and drag. And you can see that this line that it drew is basically exactly the same size as the brush. And it doesn't fade out at all. It's just wherever that circle goes, it leaves that perfect circle. If I turn the hardness all the way down, what it does is it fades from the center to kind of the outside. And you can see here that it actually kind of extends a little bit past my brush. And I guess what it is the brush is shrinking down. I don't really ever use the brush preview so much. I tend to just use my little brackets to kind of change the size of the brush, and I kind of just paint what I need. And you'll also note that when I make the brush really small, it almost looks like it's a hard-edged brush because there's not much space for it to kind of fade out. So the size of the brush, kind of obvious what that does, but the hardness, that's this option here, and that's basically how much does it fade as it nears the edge of your brush diameter. So for this exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to set it to the middle, and I'm going to Control-Alt-Z, that's Command-Option-Z on the Mac, and I'm going to just keep hitting that till all of those brush strokes are gone. And now what I need to do is I need to choose a color that's something like skin color. It doesn't have to be exactly skin color. It just needs to be somewhat like skin color. And so what I'm going to do is click here. This will open the foreground color picker. And I'm going to choose skin colors. And I am never very good at this, I'll tell you right now. So you can all silently mock me on the other side of the screen here while I just make a choice that seems something like skin color. And I'm going to double click on the zoom tool to get it to 100%. And basically what I want to do now is I want to start painting on this image. And this is kind of a skin color, so I'm going to paint on the skin. I'm going to go back to my brush tool, and I have my fingers, when I'm working on the brush, I have my fingers always on these two keys to make my brush size increase or decrease. And I'm going to just kind of start painting wherever there's skin. And this is where you really get to see Photoshop magic. Who would have believed that you could create such a realistic and lifelike effect on your image? All right, I'm joking around. So yeah, this looks terrible, but remember how I told you that layers are like magic panes of glass? Well, right now, we painted it on the pane of glass. And so a couple things I want to show you, and then I'm going to show you the magic in the next video. But the first thing is, because we painted on layer 1, we have protected our background layer. I can hide layer 1 and all of that color information is gone, right? That's all on this layer of glass. So I can take that layer of glass out or stick it back on. But this is just like, painting on glass with acrylic paint or spray paint or something. It's gonna just totally cover it up. In the next video, we're gonna learn about how to do all of the magic with the glass, because we can tell this layer, right, where we can see that we can see through the whole layer, and we can paint on the layer. But what we want to do is tell Photoshop, make this layer kind of blend in with this background layer. And we're going to learn about that in the next video.